This day is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever find yourself playing the budgeting game? Well, with the Name Your Price tool from Progressive, you can find options that fit your budget and potentially lower your bills. Try it at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law. Not available in all states. Hello and welcome to This Day, a history podcast from Radiotopia. My name is Jody Avirgan. This day, we are in peak Girl Scout cookie season, folks. Girl Scout cookies are technically available for sale from January through April, but I really do think most people associate them with this time of year, early spring. But what year do we associate it with? Well, that's what a listener wanted to know. Shout out to Nathan, who said that he's interested to learn about the history of Girl Scout cookies, but also any political or social forces that kind of may tie in. So let's hook this to April 1917, because that was indeed the year that started it all. The Mistletoe Troop in Muskogee, Oklahoma, baked cookies to raise funds to help with the World War I efforts. It took off pretty quickly from then, and then in the 1930s, it really became standardized and normalized and nationalized, and it kind of turned into the cookie industrial complex that we know and love today. So, here to discuss, as always, Nicole Hammer of Vanderbilt and Kellie Carter-Jackson of Wellesley. Hello there.
Hello, Jody.
Hey there.
I am, of course, going to ask you to rank your cookies in 1 second.
Okay.
But you know, look, we're a U.S.-based podcast. I think usually we just sort of take that as an assumption that most people have a basic understanding of U.S. history. But I actually think it is worth, in this case, we have a lot of listeners overseas, and this might be a totally baffling phenomenon to them. So, you know, someone want to do Girl Scout Cookie 101?
Yeah.
For them?
I will. I mean, okay, so some really cute little girls are going to come knock on your door, and they're going to ask if you would like to buy cookies, and they're going to give you an assortment of different kinds of cookies that you can choose from, and you're going to pay out the wazoo for this little box of maybe a dozen plus cookies, plus shipping and handling. But you're going to pay it because they're super cute and you're so happy they have this entrepreneurial spirit and they're doing good work. And
it's a fundraiser.
It's a fundraiser. And then they'll come back maybe a week or so later with your cookies, and then you will eat a whole sleeve
without even meaning to.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. If you're not good at delayed gratification, if you can't wait for that little green uniformed girl to knock on your door, they will set up shop outside of the grocery store, outside of your big box store. They'll have on their little uniforms. They'll have the boxes right there. So all you have to do is take maybe your $6 to $8. I don't know what they are now, but you whip out that cash. They probably have Swipe now or Stripe now or some kind of thing.
Oh, yeah.
And then you can walk out of there with your box right then and there and eat the sleeve on the way home in the car.
Dude, yeah. I mean, look, we could talk a little bit about the kind of, you know, commercialization of this all, because I also think now some stores you can even just buy them straight up. And then haven't worked in an office in a while, but I've had moments when I worked in an office where parents are out there selling on behalf of their kids, and then you get like a couple emails from different people who work at your office saying, oh, I'm helping my daughter sell cookies. And then it's this weird thing of like, well, am I buying from this coworker's kid or this coworker's kid? And it creates this weird competitive thing. It's like,
you got to decide which one's cutest.
Yeah, exactly.
You get a box and you get a box.
There's a little bit, so the super quaint thing where like a cute girl knocks on your door and you hand some cash over and you get some cookies. That's lovely. And then it just starts to get, it's big business now. Yes, is my point.
And then it becomes parents pushing cookies at their job.
Yeah. All right. So before we get into the history and trace how it got from Muskogee, Oklahoma to where we are now today, yes, let's talk about our favorites. Generally speaking, I think there's a list of 4 or 5 which are considered the kind of core Girl Scout cookies. And that is, of course, the Thin Mint. Well, and also we should point out that they have different names according to which company manufacturs it, which then has some regional things. So people might know these cookies by different names. But there's the Thin Mints, which are called Thin Mints everywhere. And there's the Caramel Delights / Samoas. Those are the 2 names for it. There's the Peanut Butter Sandwiches or Do-si-dos, the Peanut Butter Patties or Tagalongs. And then a lot of people know the Adventurefuls, which is kind of the most recent one. It's like a brownie-inspired cookie. And then there's a bunch of other random ones that pop up from time to time. But what's your favorite?
Thin mints, thin mints, thin mints.
Thin mints. Actually, I would say Samoas. I grew up with Samoas. Now they're caramel delights, but I'm gonna say Samoa is the number one for me.
So that's the one with the coconut on top and some caramel.
Yes, the coconut, the chocolate.
The texture is really good.
It's got that crunch. Yeah, it's good. You can't go wrong.
Those are definitely my top two. And I think I would put the peanut butter patty one at third. And then my experience of Girl Scout cookies beyond that goes way, way down because why would you branch out?
There's not too many other flavors I like. I stick with my top two, top three. That's about it.
And so does America, right? So Thin Mints account for 25% of Girl Scout cookie sales, and then the Samoa's Caramel Delights are 20%, and then the peanut butter patties, tag-alongs, 13%, and then it really drops off from there. The people have spoken.
Yeah.
All right. 1917, Muskogee, Oklahoma. The Mistletoe Troop gets this idea to bake a bunch of cookies in their school cafeteria. They are trying to raise money for people fighting in World War I. Very worthy cause.
Yeah. And who doesn't love cookies? I mean, it makes sense to. It's something that is low cost to make. You can sell a lot of them. You can sell them cheaply, and it really sort of takes off in the way that people are like, "Oh, you're selling cookies? You're raising funds? We should do that." I mean, if you think about bake sales, it's probably one of the lowest hanging fruit in terms of bake sales.
Yeah, the bake sale wasn't necessarily even a thing, right? It sort of is related to the sort of maybe even rise of that as a concept. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was also a period in which there was a lot of pressure for people to donate money, and this was a great way where you could buy a Liberty Bond, I guess, but you could also donate some money to the Girl Scouts and also get cookies, which seems like a pretty great trade-off, especially as the U.S. gets involved in the war and things like wheat are rationed. Here's a nice little tasty treat that sort of offsets some of the austerity of the wartime regime.
Yeah. During this time is also when the Girl Scouts are becoming a much bigger force, cultural force. It has a little bit to do with, we'll talk about this, but it has a little bit to do with a first lady who was very sort of involved in the Girl Scouts. But by the 20s, American Girl magazine is publishing a recipe that is used by troops all around the country for basic, simple sugar cookies. They're being sold for about 25-30 cents per dozen.
Yeah.
So there's your
price.
Talk
about inflation.
Yeah. That's pretty good. Better than a war bond.
Which we should point out that this is 10 years after the Girl Scouts were founded. So the cookie thing is foundational to the Girl Scouts. It's been there from almost the beginning. And when you have like a national magazine and then you start this tradition going around the country and they start packaging the cookies in wax paper bags, and it just becomes a core part of when the Girl Scouts need money, they sell cookies.
Yeah. But it also feels very patriotic. I mean, when you think about the fact that the First Lady of the United States is always the honorary president of the Girl Scouts, starting with Edith Wilson, Woodrow Wilson's wife. When we think about that, I think people sort of see it as part of like their civic duty to like buy some cookies.
Let me take a moment to tell you about Key Change, a new project from one of the legendary Radiotopia shows, Song Exploder. So as you know, in Song Exploder, musicians tell a story of how they created one of their songs. Well, this new series is not about the songs that people made, it's about songs that made people who they are. It is still hosted by Rishikesh Hirway, and he talks in each episode to a guest about a piece of music that was transformative for them. The guests are incredible. I just finished listening to the episode with Hanif Abdul-Rakib talking about The Clash. Hanif, Rishi, The Clash, basically my perfect podcast conversation. Comedian James Acaster talks about Outkast. The actress Sophie Thatcher talks about Elliott Smith. And if I'll just add, if you listen to Song Exploder, one of the beauties of it is that Rishi really lets the artists kind of speak in their own words. But I happen to be lucky to call Rishi a good friend of mine. I know that he's a lovely person to chat with, and I really love that in this new series we really get to know him as well as the fantastic people that he is talking to. Also, another little aside, no one names things better than Rishi. Song Exploder is great, home cooking is great, and this new one works in a couple ways too. Key change, nicely done. So, if you're already subscribed to Song Exploder, you're going to get it. If not, what are you waiting for? You now have both Song Exploder and Key Change to go dive into. Key Change comes out once a month in the Song Exploder feed or at songexploder.net/keychange. And real money. I mean, by 1923, the Girl Scouts raise enough money to pay for a new national headquarters built on Lexington Avenue in Manhattan. And I know maybe real estate wasn't as expensive in Manhattan in 1923 as it is now, but to sell enough cookies to build a headquarters is pretty impressive.
On Lex Ave. I know.
Yeah,
I know.
Good, pretty good. And to your point, Kellie, Grace Coolidge, First Lady, and also Babe Ruth are very involved in the campaign there. And so it's, it's a very feel-good cause. It has like a deep patriotism attached to it. Do we want to talk a little bit about that, the sort of political, patriotic valence of it all? I mean, obviously the Boy Scouts, I think, have a sort of sense of like we're raising men who might also go on to sort of fight for this country. I mean, what is the sort of Girl Scout ethos that feels like it ties into a political project?
It's sort of like a private public service organization in a way, right? It is not the kind of like mandatory public service that other countries have, but it is adjacent to it. It has that particular U.S. thing where we don't want to do a whole public service thing because maybe that's a little communist. So we'll do this little private organization, but it'll have close ties to the federal government. And that's what the Girl Scouts are, in the mold, as you were saying, Jody, of the Boy Scouts.
But it's not. The Girl Scouts are not a finishing school, right? It's not. No. So like there is a sort of progressive project. And for instance, in the cookie selling, I mean, the goals of the cookie program are to teach goal setting, decision making, money management, people skills, and business ethics. I mean, to say we're going to teach these things to young women in the 1920s is a kind of notable stance.
Revolutionary. I mean, this was not sewing and baking and, like all the caregiving or the things that you would typically think of. But I do think that, I don't know, there's something about the 1920s when you think about a new sort of wave of feminism and the new woman and like this idea of women wearing their hair shorter and wearing their skirts a little bit shorter and sort of having a new sort of mantra or image in how they see themselves in this modern way. It kind of tracks a little bit with that in terms of women trying to be much more assertive in their identity.
And now they have the right to vote.
Yeah, that was 1920, just a few years before this takes off. So let's turn to one of the notable figures in this and, someone who I think maybe deserves a full episode at some point. But let's do a quick sketch of Lou Henry Hoover. You want to tell us who that is?
Yeah, Lou Henry Hoover, she would become famous as the First Lady, but she was really involved with the Girl Scouts early on. She was an adventurer even as she was growing up. She was described in memoirs as a tomboy. She, as a little girl, camped and rode horses, and she went to Stanford University and was the first woman to ever get a degree in geology. But then she couldn't find a job in geology because no one would hire a woman to do field work. But of course, she meets her husband, Herbert Hoover, while they're at Stanford. She's actually just this incredible woman, and she sees the Girl Scouts, which is training girls in things like geology and adventuring and wildlife identification. And she feels a real kinship with this organization. And she becomes not an honorary president, but the actual president of the Girl Scouts in, I think, 1917. And then, of course, as First Lady, she becomes the vice president of the organization in 1917, becomes president in 22. And then when she becomes First Lady, she gets to be the honorary president for a while.
So we should definitely do a proper episode on her. She speaks 6 languages. Pretty remarkable. Yeah.
This lady's incredible.
But yes, exactly. It's very much part of the engine that helps the Girl Scouts really become a big force. So I don't know, let's come back to where we started a little bit and bring it to now. So first, there are now 2 official licensed bakeries. One is Little Brownie Bakers and then there's ABC Bakers, and they make the same cookies but call them different things. It's sort of like, what is the ho-ho versus... What's the alternate name for the
Ding Dong Snowball?
Yeah, it's like a ho-ho ding dong kind of thing. Different parts of the country call it different things. Do you feel like Girl Scout cookies have the sort of place in the public imagination that they maybe did when we were growing up? Or
I do.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah, I've never seen anyone not get excited over Girl Scout cookies. I mean, every year we buy Girl Scout cookies. And my daughter's not even doing Girl Scouts anymore because we just don't have time. But I still feel obligated to buy, to support, to find whatever little girl or niece that I have is doing it and just sort of say like, all right, put me down for 6 boxes.
I also think in the rise of sort of limited edition culture, which has really taken over U.S. food culture in the past 10 years or so, the Girl Scouts cookies have been a big part of that. Like right now, Wendy's has a Frosty that is mixed in with Thin Mints sauce.
Right.
And there are like cookie companies and donut companies. I think maybe Dunkin' Donuts might be integrating Girl Scout cookies into their limited edition. So I think that it's had kind of a new lease on life in a way as it has been brought into this TikTok limited edition food ways.
Yeah. No, that's a really good point. So we said everyone loves them. Ronald Reagan loved them. We should point out that apparently a very enterprising Girl Scout wrote her congressman who then said, can you hook me up with Ronald Reagan and sell him some cookies? And they made the connection. She conned him into buying all 7 flavors of cookies. And then he said he basically was like, I got hoodwinked by this person. But the only person who doesn't seem to like it, Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan a couple years ago, mouthing off, said Girl Scout cookies are toxic. He called them toxic. Girl Scouts, to their credit, clap back. They wrote a big thing. They were like, first off, like half the cookies are vegan. I didn't even know that. But a bunch of the cookies are vegan. They talked about the natural, ingredients. I mean, I don't think they would argue they're healthy
Joe Rogan,
for you.
You're toxic.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. Take that.
One of these things should have a warning label, and it's not the cookies.
It's a great 9-year-old comeback right there, but the best one.
They have gluten-free cookies too.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So love it.
All right. Well, listeners, we hope we made you a little hungry. We'll put a poll in the newsletter and see if our listenership agrees with our hosts and with the American public in terms of your favorites. So keep your eye out for that. But happy Girl Scout season, and thanks again to listener Nathan for giving us this idea. Nicole Hemmer, thanks to you as always.
Thank you, Jody.
And Kellie Carter-Jackson, thanks to you.
My pleasure.
Radiotopia.